of Orthodox spirituality.
Lord, have mercy, Lord, have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord, have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou, Lekea.
Lord have mercy, 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 Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy, 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 Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Amen.
Hello, dear listeners. We are continuing to read from the book Spiritual Awakening, the second volume in the series Spiritual Counsels by Saint Paisios. I see what awaits us, and I am troubled. The years pass, and what difficult years they are. Our troubles are not over. The cauldron is boiling. If one is not strengthened spiritually, how can one face a difficult situation? God has not created human beings who are good for nothing. We must cultivate our philotimo. Indeed, if a great shake-up were to come upon us, God forbid, how many would remain standing? Before the 1940 war in Konitsa, where I had the carpentry shop near the marketplace, the villagers used to bring corn and wheat and so on. When these villagers would bring their corn to sell at the market, some wealthy people who were not really wealthy, but they did earn a small interest on their deposited money, would kick the sack and disinterestedly ask how much it cost. But when war came and they had to sell everything they owned in order to survive, these same people would come to the market, and when the villager said, "Good morning," they would ask, "Have you any corn to sell?" This is why you should thank God for all things. Tighten your belts a little and become frugal. I see what awaits us, and I am troubled. Do not allow yourselves to get slack. Have you any idea what Christians are going through in other places? It was stated in 1987. In Russia, they are still in labor camps. What hardships they have to endure. There are no books for spiritual edification. And what about poor Albania and the great misfortune there? They don't even have anything to eat. Churches and monasteries have all been shut down. People even had to change their names so they don't sound Christian. Even in America, the Orthodox Christians are few and scattered in different places. Do you know what they're going through? Without an Orthodox community, they have to take the train miles and miles away just to go to church. Some come to the Holy Mountain to seek spiritual guidance. It is great ingratitude on our part to have such an enervate spirit prevailing in Greece. God will reveal many saints in the countries where communism was in power, martyrs who chose death. They held important positions but could not agree with laws contrary to the law of God. I cannot agree with this. Kill me, throw me into prison, they would say, so that the others would not also be misled. Here in our country, without having to, so many are showing such great indifference. It would be different if they were going through some hardships, a war, or difficult years. But now, it's as if nothing is going on. How should one say this? It's like someone arriving from Australia by airplane to Greece in the springtime and then departing for Australia in autumn, only to arrive there in springtime again. They go from spring to spring, with no winter in sight, no sense of cold and heavy weather. Yaroda, how can we help a person who is indifferent? We need to instill in him the good concern, the good restlessness, perturb him so that he'll want to do something to help himself. It cannot be done by force. A person must be thirsty before you can give him water. Try giving food to someone who isn't hungry. He will throw up. When the other person does not want something, I cannot deprive him of his freedom, his free will. Ignorance is not justifiable. Yeroda, is it possible that some people are indifferent because they are simply ignorant and uninformed? What ignorance? Let me tell you about a case of ignorance. A literature teacher from Chalkidiki did not know what the Holy Mountain is. A German teacher spoke to him about the Holy Mountain, and they came together for a visit. The German man even knew how many monasteries there are on the Holy Mountain, and even though a Protestant, he also knew about the sacred relics and where each one was. Now, is such ignorance justifiable among our people? Another person from America advised someone from Chalkidiki again to come to me for help with a problem he was having. From America, mind you. Let me tell you something else. Someone came to my Kalivi from Florina. I asked him, "Are you from within Florina?" And he said, "Yes, from within the city." So I told him, "You have a very good metropolitan there." Then he asked me, "What football team does he play with?" He thought I was talking about a football player. He was so immersed in the game of football that he didn't even know the local bishop. At least Augustine Cantiotis is a well-known bishop. Such ignorance is not justifiable. No, ignorance cannot be justified in the world today. What is missing is philotimo, the good disposition. He who has the good disposition of coming to know Christ will come to know Him. He will make a turn and come to meet Him. And even if there is not a theologian or a monk to teach him the Word of God, as long as he has a good disposition, he will make the turn to Christ, either from an encounter with a snake or a wild beast, or from a lightning, from a storm, or some other event in his life. God will provide the means. A young anarchist had gone to Germany. There he was confined to a reformatory because he had gotten involved with drugs. He had no help from anyone. In the reformatory, someone gave him a New Testament. He read it and immediately changed. He said, "I will go to Greece, that's where orthodoxy is." He returned to his village, and his relatives were intent on finding him a wife. He got married and had a child. He continued to read the New Testament, go to church, observe the fasts and the feasts. The others who saw him live like that said, "He must have gone crazy to be reading the New Testament." After a while, his wife abandoned him and took the child with her. When his wife left him, he left everything he had in the village, fields, tractor, and so on, and went to live as an ascetic in a cave. A spiritual father, however, advised him to go find his wife first, talk with her, and then decide what to do. So he set out for Thessaloniki to find his wife and child. He believed, since the spiritual father so advised him, that Christ would reveal her. Christ did not reveal his wife in Thessaloniki. In the meantime, he found some Germans and instructed them in the faith. One of them was baptized. The Germans paid the fare for the young man to go to Athens to seek his wife there. But he did not find her there either. Again, someone helped him go to Crete. He started working there and went to see a spiritual father. When the spiritual father heard his problem, he told him, "Is your wife and child like this, like that? There is a woman working here who arrived recently." And he described the woman to him. "She must be the one," the young man said. The father informed her, and as soon as she looked upon her husband, she exclaimed, "How did you find me? Are you a sorcerer? Did you find me with the help of sorcery?" She turned away and left him again before they could even begin to talk. He lost her for a second time. He heard about me and came to my kalivi. He knocked once and waited. He stood to the side doing prostrations until I would open the door. He was wearing old and worn clothing. He told me the whole story. I had some dry figs and offered them to him. "Do you want some figs?" I asked him. "I have no teeth," he replied. "I don't have any either," I told him. "Are you in pain?" he asked me, and added, "I am in pain, and out of pain comes the joy of Christ." I asked him again, "Do you want a sweater?" "I have two," he said, "and if the weather warms up, I will give one away to someone." Then I told him, "Until you clear up the situation with your wife, you must take care of your health, because you have a responsibility to your child too." Such self-denial, such faith that young man had. He wasn't yet 27 years old. Imagine if he had come to know the monastic life. He had total ignorance, but he also had a good disposition, and God helped him to make profound evangelical progress. This is why I say that ignorance cannot be justified in any way today. Only if someone is mentally deficient or a small child can he be justified for being ignorant. But then again, even little children today are so bright. If one really wants to, there are many opportunities to learn the truth. Chapter 2. The presence of a Christian is a confession of faith. Yeroda, do the various movements, demonstrations, and protests carried out by Christians have any positive results? The presence of Christians is now a confession of faith. Someone may be of more help through prayer, but his silence will be exploited by others who say, "So-and-so did not protest, therefore he is on our side, he agrees with us." If some of us do not begin to strike back at evil, to reproach those who scandalize the faithful, greater harm will be done. The faithful will be somewhat encouraged, and at the same time, those who are attacking the church will be somewhat hindered. The church is not their boat to go sailing with. It is the ark of Christ, and those who attack the church are censurable. They are only interested in having big salaries, expensive cars, and entertainment. And then they make laws for civil marriages. They legalize abortions. As to what God will do, that is another matter. And with the blasphemous movies being produced these days, they want to ridicule Christ. Essentially, they are saying, "That's who Christ was, but now will come the real Messiah." Then they go on to present their own Messiah. This is what they seem to be aiming at. People, Yeroda, believe these things and are harmed. Those already harmed are harmed all the more. People believe these things because they want to justify the unjustifiable and to ease their conscience. With all this blasphemy, they are seeking to justify moral and spiritual disorders. They have overdone it. They filed a lawsuit against the movie, The Last Temptation of Christ, as being blasphemous to the Christian religion, and the public prosecutor said, "Oh, it is nothing." The blasphemous movie, The Last Temptation of Christ, directed by Martin Scorsese, was shown for a short while in the theaters of Athens in 1988. The storm of protests and demonstrations created by the faithful and the Church of Greece forced the theaters to stop showing it. The elder, in spite of the pain he endured from his hernia, came out of the holy mountain together with other monks to be present at the demonstration in Thessaloniki and to support the faithful people with his presence. Such blasphemies had not been heard before. For us, the protest against that blasphemous movie was a confession of faith. Of course, with all these blasphemous things, there also comes a good thing. The wheat is separated from the chaff. People are passed through the sieve. Yet on that, are there issues which we as individuals or as groups should defend, and other issues which we should not? When you, for example, were called a heretic, you responded, but with other criticisms, you kept silent. This is the consensus of the Holy Fathers, and not my own opinion. Any other accusation helps me in the spiritual life, while the accusation of being a heretic separates me from Christ. People are being lulled to sleep. Yeroda, with everything that is going on in the world today, how can people get some help? The one who really desires to be helped can indeed be helped through insignificant things. For example, a vigil oil lamp is seen moving back and forth, or the person himself is shaken by an earthquake and he recovers from his indifference. But those who do not believe in the first place become worse when they hear that a war will break out or some catastrophe will take place. Let's have a good time now, they reason. Life's too short. So they pull out all the stops. In the past, even the indifferent ones would recover and change their way of life when a war was about to break out. Now, such people are very few. In the past, our nation lived spiritually, and God would bless it, and our saints helped us overcome our enemies, who were always more numerous than us. Today, we say that we are Orthodox Christians, but unfortunately, we often only have the name Orthodox, but not the Orthodox way of life. Once, I asked a spiritual father who was active in society and had many spiritual children, "What do you know about a blasphemous movie?" "I know nothing about it," he told me. He knew nothing about it and yet was guiding so many people in a big city. People are being lulled to sleep. They want people in the dark, carefree, and having a good time. One must not dare to speak about an impending war, or that we must prepare ourselves for the second coming. God forbid that we should cause the people to worry over such things. It is like some old ladies who say, "Don't talk about death, talk only of joyful things and baptisms," as if death is not waiting for them too. So they have a false sense of joy. On the one hand, if they were to think about the aged man down the street who died yesterday, or the other one who has come to the end of his life and will soon die, or that a memorial service is being held the day after tomorrow for someone much younger than them, then they might be inclined to think about death and say, "I must go to confession, prepare myself spiritually, for Christ may call me soon to the other life." Otherwise, death in time will take them unprepared. Some others again, out of supposed kindness, give the following advice: don't tell the heretics that they are in error, to show them love. So everything is leveled. If these people had lived during the early years of Christianity, we wouldn't have had a single saint. In those years, Christians were told, "Just throw some incense in the fire for the emperor, and do not deny Christ." And they would not accept this. "Just pretend you're throwing incense." Again, they refused. "Don't talk about Christ and go quietly to some other area." Again, they did not accept any compromise. But today, one sees so many lukewarm people. Yeroda, when the Apostle Paul writes, "The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy," Galatians 5 verse 22, does he mean that joy is an indication of a proper life? Yes, because there is worldly joy and divine joy. When something is not spiritual, pure, there cannot be true joy and peace in the heart. The joy experienced by a spiritual person is not the worldly joy sought by many today. Let's not mix things up. Did the saints have the kind of joy we are seeking today? Did Panagia have such joy? Did Jesus go around laughing? Which saint has gone through this life without pain? Which saint had the joy sought by many present-day Christians who do not want to hear anything unpleasant, who do not want to worry or lose their serenity? If I do not want to worry or be troubled so that I may be happy, if I do not want to lose my serenity so that I may be meek, then I am indifferent. Spiritual meekness and meekness out of indifference are two different things. Some people say, I must be cheerful because I am a Christian. I must be calm because I am a Christian. Such people are not Christians. Do you understand? That is indifference. It is worldly joy. One who has these worldly elements is not a spiritual person. A spiritual person is a mass of pain. That is to say, a spiritual person is pained over circumstances, over people, but is compensated for this pain by divine consolation. He does feel pain, but inside he also feels divine consolation, for God is pouring blessings from paradise, and man is overjoyed with divine love. This is the joy, the spiritual joy, which is not expressed, but rather abounds in the heart. The example speaks. Yeroda, should people living a spiritual life in the world let others know that they are fasting? When it is a matter of the prescribed times of fasting, such as Wednesdays, Fridays, and the other Lenten seasons, then we should, because it is a confession of faith. The other ascetic fasts, that is, those which are undertaken for the love of Christ or for our prayer of petition to be heard, those should be practiced in secret. Our goal is to live in an orthodox way, not simply to speak or to write in an orthodox way. This is why, you see, a sermon does not inform, does not change the life of a person, no matter how good it is, unless the preacher is actually living the faith. Yeroda, what happens if the one who hears or reads a sermon has a good and open disposition? Well, then he already has divine grace, and that's why he can benefit from such a sermon. One who does not have this good disposition, however, will take and examine what the preacher is saying and will not receive any spiritual benefit from it. It is relatively easy to think in an orthodox way. To live the orthodox way of life requires effort. Once a theologian gave a talk urging people to go and donate blood because there was a shortage. And indeed, many were motivated to go and donate blood. However, he himself did not donate even a single drop, even though he had plenty. The people were then scandalized. But he responded by saying, by speaking to the people and motivating them to donate blood counts as if I had given much more. Thus he was able to ease his conscience. It would have been better if he had not given the talk but gone to donate a little blood of his own. One's life is what counts. I am a rightist, someone told me, who had no relationship with the church whatsoever. If you do not even make the sign of the cross, how can that be of benefit to you? I told him. A hand that does not make the sign of the cross has no particular benefit for being the right hand. How does it differ from the left hand that does not make the sign of the cross? If you are a rightist and you do not make the sign of the cross, how do you differ from the leftists? The goal is to be a spiritual person, living close to Christ. Then you can be helpful to others as well. When a person lives aright, then his work will inform others. A certain Protestant lived in a city and was critical of everybody, the clergy, the bishops, everyone without exception. Not far from there, a certain monk lived an ascetic life in a monastery. At one point, an atheist asked the Protestant, "All right, you criticize all the bishops and all the clergy. What do you have to say about that monk?" "Him I accept," he said, "because he differs from the others." A faithful person who lives authentically will be of benefit to others, no matter where he may be. I remember a friend of mine who served as a policeman on the northern borders. In the area, there were some Serb communists who were real atheists and committed members of the party. When Serb priests came to the Greek-Serbian border, the policeman would kiss their hand. The communists noticed this. A Greek policeman was kissing the hand of Serb priests. This made an impression upon the communists, and they reconsidered the issue of faith. How helpful are those people who have an important position and uphold the faith and traditions. This is why I try to see some important people when they come to me. I want to help them because they in turn can help others with their good example. There is a field marshal I know who is such an example. Whatever he does is from within, from the heart, not superficial. Others who observe his way of life question themselves and are benefited. In the past, the local leaders had principles they believed. Do you know what a prominent lady had said to a parliamentarian in a city? She had attended a dinner with her husband during the Dormition fast, and there was fish and meat on the table. She wasn't eating because she was keeping the fast. The parliamentarian noticed her and made the familiar remark, "The sick and the travelers need not keep the fast." "Oh yes, especially those traveling with ease in their car," she replied, and did not touch any of the non-Lenten food. Meanwhile, there was also a clergyman at the same dinner who addressed the group by saying, "It is my honor to be here with you this evening," and going on and on with endless praises and compliments. At one point, the clergyman was interrupted by the husband of the notable lady with an appropriate verse from the Psalms. "Put not your trust in princes, in a son of man, in whom there is no salvation." Psalm 146, verse 3. The clergyman had obviously gone there to flatter the guests. On another occasion, the same lady had said to a university professor of theology, "Please do not fuss too much over minor details and fail the priests in their examination. Try to help them pass their examination, because there is such a great need for priests in the countryside." The point I want to make is that in the past, local officials and leading members of our society were interested in the church and served as an example for the people. What will have a positive impact on people today is our Christian example and our Christian life. Christians should be distinguished by spiritual heroism, nobility, sacrifice. This is why I tell lay people, love Christ, be humble, do your duty, and Christ himself will reveal your virtue to others. Virtue has a rule of its own by which it will reveal a person, wherever he may be. Even if one should conceal himself, or even pretend to be a fool for Christ's sake, virtue will definitely be revealed, even at a later time, and the stored treasure revealed all together at last will again help many souls. Perhaps then, even more. Dear listeners, our show has come to an end. Thank you for listening. We will continue once again where we left off in our next show. Until then, be well.
Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. Lord, have
Readings of Orthodox Spirituality.
Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord, have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou Lekea.